Welcome back to another explainer. Okay, let's just jump right into this. Today, we're going on a little journey to uncover the hidden strategies, the intense calculations, and the pretty fascinating psychology behind something you look at literally every single day. Yep, the everyday price tag. In the entire world of marketing, price is actually the only element that generates revenue for a business. Literally everything else is just a cost. Usually, we just glance at a price, pay it, and move on with our day. But behind that simple little number, there's a massive churning engine of business strategy and economic theory.
To make sense of all this, we're going to use a simple what, why, and how framework to hit four main stops. We'll look at the meaning of price, the objectives behind it, the factors that determine it, and then wrap up with the core pricing methods. All right, starting us off with section 1, the meaning of price, unmasking the transaction.
I want you to actively think about this for a second. Have you ever actually stopped to wonder how things get their price tag? Like when you walk into a cafe and buy a latte or order a new phone online, how exactly did they arrive at that very specific amount? It's not arbitrary. No way. It's this highly complex intersection of economics, reading the market, and corporate strategy, all designed to influence your decision while, keeping the business afloat. Adam Smith, the father of modern economics, framed this brilliantly. He basically said, the price of everything, what everything really costs, is the toil and trouble of acquiring it. Think about that. It totally elevates price from just being pieces of paper or digital numbers on a screen to being the ultimate measure of our collective human effort. It's the exchange of our toil. So at its absolute core, a price is simply the exchange value of a product expressed in some kind of monetary unit. But practically speaking, it's the ultimate regulator of an entire economy. The price a business sets ultimately dictates the wages they pay for labor, the rent they pay for land, the interest for capital, and the profit for the entrepreneur. It literally touches every single factor of production. And what's really fascinating here is how price wears a bunch of different disguises depending on what exactly you're buying. For instance, when you buy insurance, the price is called a premium. When you borrow money from a bank, the price of using that money, that's called interest. Taking a bus, the price is a fare. Going to college, the price is tuition. They're all just different names for the exact same underlying concept.
Moving right along to section 2, objectives behind pricing, the hidden motivations.
So it's a super common misconception that every single company out there is just trying to maximize their immediate profit on every single item they sell. In reality, it's more like businesses operate on three distinct paths: profitability objectives, sales volume objectives, and this really interesting catch-all category of other strategic objectives. Ultimately, whatever pricing goal they choose has to line up perfectly with the firm's overall mission. The absolute crucial point here is understanding the difference between profit maximization and sales volume maximization. Profit maximization is the classic approach, right? You estimate demand, calculate your costs, and pick the price that brings the most money in right now. But sales volume maximization is totally different. Under this strategy, management might actually take a short-term loss. They might slash prices or run crazy discounts just to maximize their market share and get a strong foothold, betting that grabbing more customers now is way more valuable in the long run than making a quick buck today. And then we have these other strategic objectives, and honestly, this is where it gets really clever. A company might price their product simply to stabilize the market so they don't trigger a devastating price war with a giant competitor. Or they might price just to keep the lights on and survive. Sometimes they'll drop prices incredibly low specifically to scare off a new competitor from even trying to enter the market. And on the flip side, sometimes a company intentionally sets a sky-high price just to improve their image. Think of a luxury watch or a designer handbag. That high price tag is literally a signal to the consumer that says, hey, we are a premium high-quality supplier. Okay, section 3, factors determining the price, constraints, and limits. I want you to imagine the physical space a business has to operate in as a room. The floor of that room, that's the product cost. A business absolutely cannot go below the floor, at least not for long, or they won't survive. They have to cover their costs. Now, the ceiling of that room is the value to the buyer. You can't charge more than what the customer genuinely believes the product is worth because, well, they just won't buy it. So the marketing manager's whole job is to find the exact perfect sweet spot somewhere between that floor and that ceiling. But what actually forces the price up or down within that room? Mostly it's market competition and legal considerations. If there's free and healthy competition in the market, that pressure naturally pushes the price down towards the floor, towards the base cost. But if you have a monopoly, or practically zero competition, well, the business has the freedom to let the price float all the way up to the ceiling, grabbing the absolute maximum the buyer is willing to pay. And of course, the firm always has to play by the rules and comply with government pricing laws. Finally, Section 4, Core Pricing Methods, the Business Playbook. Now that we know the what and why, let's talk about the how. The entire landscape of pricing execution generally falls into three clean, overarching buckets: cost-oriented, demand-oriented, and competition-oriented. Let's break down the actual mechanics to see how these play out. The most fundamental, back-to-basics method is cost-plus pricing. The formula here is incredibly simple. Price equals total cost plus a predetermined margin of profit. You just add up your manufacturing, distribution, and marketing costs and slap a percentage on top. Boom, there's your price. It's a very safe method, especially in unpredictable markets, and you'll see it used a ton for government contracts. The huge limitation, though, it completely ignores what your competitors are doing and, more importantly, what the customer is actually willing to pay. Now, let's look at the demand-oriented approach, specifically differential pricing. This is where businesses charge different prices based on how intense the demand is. Think about it. They might charge based on your ability to pay, kind of like varying ticket classes at the cinema. They charge based on location. They charge based on time, like how hotel rates just absolutely skyrocket during tourist season. It's all about extracting the maximum possible value based on the buyer's specific circumstances. The major merit here is maximum revenue, but the limitation is pretty obvious. Customers can feel totally alienated if they realize they just paid way more than the guy next to them. And finally, we have the competition-oriented method, specifically going rate pricing. With this one, a company doesn't deeply analyze its own costs or obsess over demand. Instead, they just look around at their competitors and set their price based on the prevailing industry rates. They're essentially relying on the collective wisdom of the market. This is super common in highly competitive markets where everyone is selling identical, homogeneous products and nobody wants to trigger a destructive price war. While this definitely keeps the peace, the limitation is that it ignores your own unique production costs, which can potentially squeeze your profit margins down to zero.
So, we've covered the meaning, the hidden objectives, the constraints, and the core calculation methods of pricing. I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought to take out into the real world. Think about the very last thing you bought. Was it a cup of coffee, a software subscription, a pair of shoes? Which pricing method do you think that company actually used? Were they trying to maximize their profit, or were they just trying to survive the quarter? Once you start looking at the world of commerce through the strategic lens, I promise you will never look at a price tag the same way again. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you.